I am back. It is a beautiful, beautiful New York evening. It is about what time is it? 8:50. As you can see behind me, we have beautiful orange and pink skies. Today we had thunderstorms and then we had sun that burnt Jimmy, and now we got these beautiful skies. But right to Swahili, leo nataka tuongee about Pan-Africanism na kama nchi zote zinaweza fanya kazi pamoja. How kweli, how true could it be? So what I try to say in Swahili is today I want to talk about Pan Africanism and whether all the different African countries can work as one, like in one accord, and like how realistic is that, right? Now, there's a reason I wanted to ask that question. I personally am Pan Africanist. I would love to see that happen. But I'm also a realist. And I look at the world in a global sense and I ask, and I'm like, okay, where else does this work? Where else has it worked? Or how does it look when it's working? Or something similar to it? So I wanted to dive like right into that topic. And before we do that, we're going to first give you the definition, but let me get some water. So, definition time. All right. The definition or description of Pan Africanism is Pan Africanism is a political, cultural, and ideological movement that seeks to unify and uplift people of African descent worldwide. Its core goals are solidarity among African nations and global African diaspora, liberation from colonial and neo-colonial systems, and promotion of shared cultural and historical identity. So, in the beginning, it says there's three key aspects about it: political, cultural, and ideological. Today, I want to focus on the political part, like where countries would actually work together and have one accord, operate in one fashion and manner that unites us. Because to me, like since I was a child, it's like the idea of Pan Africanism was sold like at one point Africa operated like that, and not and then some no, the narrative that I always understood was like at one point Africa was like this, colonialism happened, and now we're like this, and I'm like pause, pause, pause. Was Africa really like that before colonialism? How far did that Pan Africanism notion spread? Like, it may have been practiced locally, regionally in one aspect, but let's dive into the topic, right? So, when I think about like pre-colonial era, and I look at a country just like let's go with Kenya because I'm Kenyan and I understand Kenya better than other countries, but they're pretty similar. When I look at a country like Kenya, a lot of people or a lot of communities would have been operating within their own communities pre-colonial era. So Swahili was already a uniting language because it was used to trade and communicate between different tribes. But normally, or most likely, you would have spoken just your mother tongue within your tribe. Swahili was also a second language, but the predominant language you would have used would have probably been your tribe. So when I think about the idea of like Kenya and a Tanzania and a Ethiopia and a Uganda, because direct like connecting countries, right? How realistic would they be able to operate in one fashion and manner if when you go to those countries there's the same diversity and the same, I don't want to say divisions, but they are divisions because people still operate like that today within communities and all that. But it's changing, right? People are now want to the newer age generation wants to operate within just one identity. We're Kenyans or we're Ethiopians or we're this or that. So if I don't even know what to ask. If those differences still exist within every country, which prevents each country from progressing, when we sell this notion of like one full Africa and one currency, one this, one that, to me, I feel like that it what's it called? It almost sounds like a pipe dream when someone just looks around the world they live in, right? Like, I'm a realist. At the same time, I am a Pan-Africanist. That's my goal. I believe it's possible. But the realist side of me is like, yo, Jimmy, look at the issues in Kenya, the issues that are within Uganda, the issues that are within Ethiopia, and you want to tell me that they want to work, they can work together. So I'm like, what would it actually take for that to happen? I'm pro it. Don't get me twisted. Don't think that this is a video of Jimmy saying Pan Africanism can't work. No, but it's acknowledging the differences that currently exist and how those ties could be made. Now, remember in the beginning, I said that there's three parts of Pan Africanism: there's the political, cultural, and ideological. I think that those other two parts, the cultural and ideological part, is what will change the political. Because I'm looking at like within Kenya, what's going on with the Gen Z? That's an ideological and cultural movement to where people don't want to operate within tribal nature or regional this or blocks, or you guys get the point. And then there's one ideology, one Kenyan identity. That's how they're operating. And that's changing the political. So once the political is changed, because I'm seeing it happen and I love to see it, because to me, the idea of Pan Africanism seemed so far fetched. Because I'm just like, to me, I was always looking, I'm like, yo, you're telling me we're going to be hand in hand with Tanzania when the crap that goes on in Kenya can barely let us actually build a nation first? How are we going to actually connect and now operate within one? But I'm seeing the Gen Z change that part. And that's where the cultural and ideological part come in. So let's actually, what's it called? Let's scroll further down. You guys, this is a casual chat. This is just me speaking my mind. This is not like I had something planned out. But that question has always been in my head of like, how realistic is it? Because I feel like that's what's sold to people. A lot of what's not talked about is the cultural and ideological part. The fact that we don't actively work to build like Pan-African communities here. We'll go to the same events and share, what's it called? Share within like entertainment and stuff, concerts and all that. But like deep rooted communities, I don't see that. And that's the part that's missing for the political part to connect. Huh. These are I'm thinking out loud. Thinking out loud. But at the same time, how no, I don't want to ask that. Let's go further. Let's go further. I want to see the ideological part: unity of African decolonization, cultural. So encourages the revival and celebration of African heritage, languages, and traditions. I'm trying to speak Swahili. It's bad, but I'm trying to get back to it. Okay. That's what I wanted to talk about. Language. So the reason I think that a country like Kenya is pretty stable, because I look at Africa and I'm like, there's been civil wars in so many countries, but I'm like, there was never a civil war within Kenya, and I'm like, why? But for me, I always looked at language and I always thought language is the one thing that's going to tie everyone together. Now, within Africa, there's how many languages? In Africa, there's approximately 2,000 languages. That's a lot. Oh my gosh. And that's a lot of difference. When you think about that, 2,000 languages, I think that's probably one of the most linguistically diverse places within the world. Let me see. Okay, back to topic. There's 2,000 languages within Africa. I look at a country like Kenya, and I think that the reason that there's relative to peace is because the language Swahili has been integrated within, what's it called, our education system, meaning that no matter what part of the country you're living in, you're learning Swahili. So whether you're Somali or Ethiopian or some type of Ugandan or Tanzanian, and you come from let's say the border regions, and go to school within those Kenyan towns out there, you're still learning Swahili. You're going to be able to communicate with the average Kenyan you come across if you can speak Swahili. So that means we can laugh together, we can insult each other, we can also do business with each other. But then I go to a country like, let's say a country. Let's get out of East Africa because Swahili is spoken across East Africa, and I think that's why a lot of the trade that happens between there is facilitated because of Swahili. But let's go to a country like Nigeria, one of the biggest countries population wise within Africa. The only uniting language there is like, what's it called? English. And then you also have other French countries like, let me pull up a map. I have Google Earth. So we're gonna go on Google Earth. We're gonna type in. Man, I'm already in Africa. What am I talking about? All right, so you have countries out here like Senegal. If I'm correct, Senegal they speak French. If I'm correct, it's a francophone country, right? And then within the Senegalese country itself, you have multiple different tribes. But do they have one uniting African tribe? Not tribe, language. They have multiple tribes and multiple languages. But do they have one language, one African language that unites them within the country? Same for those other countries like Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Cote d'Ivoire, all that. I think that the first step to first uniting any country has to be language. Everyone should be able to communicate with each other in a native African language. The next step is that language being borderless because these borders were drawn, right? So now, if a Nigerian and a Cameroonian can trade across borders without having to interact in English, or a, what's it called, Cote d'Ivoirian in a country is this, Burkina Fasoan can also interact without using French, I think that that would tie the identities of the people there together better. And then the political part is still hard because you have like dictators. Oh my gosh, yo, dictators. That's a whole other thing. You have dictators that are like, no, this is my country, bro. What do you mean unite? I don't care about you neighbors. You don't cross this border that was drawn by someone else. This is my land. Oh my gosh, that's the other part. You like by the time you even connect languages, then you have dictators. But like I said, this new crop of African youth coming up, they're not with the same old, same old. The fugazi stuff that our parents did tribal wise and keeping the same person in office for 40, 60 years, man, 20 years. But then there's people still living in that today. I don't know, man. This was just a think out loud chat about Pan Africanism. I hope the camera hasn't been shaky. But you guys let me know in the comment section what you guys think about the realisticness or the barriers that come with one Africa working together. And then when, like I was saying, when you look at a country like India or China, how many identities had to be erased for the predominant one to be Han or the predominant one to be Hindu? When you go to other large countries like Russia, you still have, yes, there's other parts within Russia. I said Russia. Oh my gosh. You have other parts within Russia that are like almost autonomous regions and they only speak their language. But at the same time, they all speak Russian. They all speak, what's it called? Mandarin. They all speak Hindu. Is Hindu the language? I really hope it is. I know there's Urdu, no, those are all the surrounding countries. But at the same time, look at a country like Bangladesh. Bangladesh was at one point a part of India. They're pretty much the same people, but then religious wise, that's where the biggest divide is. But linguistically, they're almost very, very similar. And they broke off, I think, in the 70s. Yeah. You have South Sudan that separated from the. Yes, Sudan is split. I don't consider South Sudan, man. They're Sudan. I don't think that they should lose the title of Sudan. They're still Sudan. I feel like I feel like the idea of splitting, and then the North gets to keep the title Sudan. That ain't fair. I'm like, nah, we were Sudan before we split. Why do we have to be South? But you guys get the point. There's so many things that get in the way of it, but it's happening slowly. I'm not gonna ramble, but this was a less chat type of video, and you guys let me know in the comment section whether you've thought of it on the realistic side of all the things that get in the way before these countries can work together. Before Kenya and Ethiopia can have one currency or speak one language, there's so many barriers that get to that. Um, should that be the narrative that we're selling? Or should we focus our narrative on the cultural and ideological part? I feel like that would make a lot more progress. You do have places like Burkina Faso, Traore, he's doing his thing. If we had like 50 Traores in Africa, I was watching Lynn Goge's channel today. And I was just thinking, like, if we had like 50 Traores, because the guy on his channel said that, and he was talking about Pan Africanism today. Shout out to you, Lynn. Um, Africa would be different. Maybe that's the change we need, a militant approach. Because I'm telling you, with the dictators and the maniacal leaders we have, even in Kenya ourselves, Mr. Ruto, man, we'll see how life goes. I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next episode. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see y'all. Bye.